The art gallery inside Willowbrook Cafe in Seattle, Washington, wasn't a real gallery at all, just a warm corner where local artists could hang their paintings for customers to admire. Most people passed the pictures without even looking, rushing in for coffee and hurrying back out into the busy city. But to Emily, the quiet waitress with soft brown eyes, the display meant everything. Every painting there had been created by her mother. Emily dusted the frames gently each morning, as if touching memories. Her mom had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving behind nothing but a small box of paintbrushes and a heart full of unfinished dreams. Emily worked double shifts to help her younger brother and keep her mom's legacy alive. The cafe allowed her to display the artwork for free, and every time someone stopped to look, Emily felt her mom's presence again. That afternoon, the bell over the door chimed, and a tall man in an expensive gray suit walked in. He moved with confidence, the kind of presence that made people step aside without him asking. Customers whispered under their breath. Emily didn't know who he was, but the staff spoke his name with nervous respect. Alexander Halle Dott, a billionaire investor, owner of Halle Global Enterprises, a man people said could buy anything but peace. Emily later realized that Emily approached him with her usual gentle smile. "Welcome to Willowbrook Cafe. What can I get for you today?" Alexander didn't answer right away. His eyes had locked onto the painting behind her, the one her mother had spent months perfecting. It showed a little girl blowing dandelions into the wind. The colors were soft but alive, like a memory caught in sunlight. He stepped closer, almost forgetting to breathe. "Who painted this picture?" he asked, voice lower, almost curious. For a second, Emily froze. No one had ever shown such interest in that piece. "My mom," she whispered. "She painted it before she passed." Something flickered in Alexander's eyes, an emotion she couldn't name, something deep and wounded. He stared at the painting as if it unlocked a door he had tried to close forever. Customers chatted around them, oblivious. Emily waited patiently, unsure why this powerful man suddenly looked fragile. "She was talented," he said softly. "Thank you," Emily replied. She believed beauty came from small things, moments people forget to notice. Alexander nodded slowly, like someone hearing a truth they once knew. He finally ordered a simple black coffee and sat by the window. But he kept glancing at the painting, his expression distant. A few minutes later, the cafe's manager whispered to Emily, "He's a billionaire, you know. Don't mess this up. Serve him perfectly." "I serve everyone perfectly," Emily replied calmly, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Alexander Halle wasn't here for coffee. He had been pulled by something else, something he didn't understand. When she brought him the drink, she noticed a small photograph tucked inside his wallet on the table. A picture of a little girl holding a dandelion, just like the painting. Emily looked away quickly, not wanting to pry, but Alexander caught the direction of her gaze. He didn't hide the photo. Instead, he let it sit there, as if it asked him to remember something painful. "My daughter," he said quietly. "Lily. She passed away 3 years ago." Emily's heart tightened. "I'm so sorry." He nodded once, a tight swallow. "She used to draw. Paint, too. I bought her every art kit money could get. But she always said she preferred drawing things that felt alive. The last thing she ever painted was a dandelion." Emily didn't know what to say. The cafe suddenly felt silent around them. Loss recognized loss. Grief recognized grief. "Your mother painted this shortly before she passed?" he asked. Emily nodded. She said art was how she kept love alive. Alexander let out a shaky breath. Lily used to say something similar. He stared at the wall again, his expression almost pleading, like the painting was giving him a piece of his daughter back. Emily said softly, "Maybe that's why you noticed it." Before he could answer, the manager called Emily to the counter. She excused herself and left Alexander alone with the painting and his memories. While she refilled mugs and wiped tables, she kept glancing toward him. He didn't drink his coffee. He barely moved. He just kept looking at the painting as if he were talking to someone through it. When Emily returned, Alexander stood with a quiet determination. "I'd like to buy this painting," he said. Emily shook her head gently. "I'm sorry. They're not for sale. They're the last pieces I have of her." He hesitated, then surprisingly nodded with respect. "Then, may I commission one? Something similar?" Emily blinked. She's gone." Alexander swallowed. "I know. But maybe you could paint something, or continue her style?" Emily laughed nervously. "I'm not an artist." "You talk like one," he said softly. She lowered her eyes. "I only talk about her." He looked at her long and searching, as if sensing the quiet strength she didn't show the world. Finally, Alexander reached into his breast pocket and pulled out a business card. Not flashy. Just simple white with gold letters. "If you ever change your mind, call me." Emily accepted the card politely, but she knew she'd never call. Men like him didn't cross paths with people like her. He left the cafe quietly, leaving behind a half-drunk coffee and a silence that felt heavier than before. But when she went to clean his table, Emily found something else. A small folded note tucked under the plate. Not money, not a tip. Just 2 handwritten words. "Thank you." Emily stared at the note, confused. Why thank her? She had done nothing special. Or maybe she had. Maybe she had given him something money couldn't buy. The next afternoon, the cafe smelled of vanilla syrup and freshly brewed dark roast as the sun leaned through the tall windows. Rose moved quietly between tables, setting out napkins, adjusting chairs, trying to steady her own heartbeat. She kept replaying the previous day in her mind. The billionaire who sat in her section, the way he looked at her mother's painting, the unexpected softness in his expression. People like him didn't usually look at people like her that way. They didn't sit in small-town cafes in Asheville, North Carolina either, yet he did. When the door chimed, she looked up expecting a regular customer. Instead, there he was again, Ethan Hawley, in a clean gray sweater and dark jeans this time. No suit, no entourage, just him. He walked in like he had been here 100 times before. Rose swallowed. Table for one?" "Yes," he said, smiling in a way that almost felt unfamiliar for someone whose face she had seen on magazines with headlines about hostile takeovers and mergers. "But only if you're okay serving me again." She nodded stiffly. "Sure. Same table? If it's available." He glanced around. "It feels right." She led him over, placing the menu gently in front of him. "Would you like coffee?" "Only if you make it," he said lightly. Her cheeks warmed. She turned quickly toward the counter before her emotions caught up with her. What was he doing back here? Why did he sound like someone trying to reconnect with an old friend instead of a billionaire dropping into a random cafe? When she returned with his coffee, he wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't checking emails or tapping messages. He was staring at one of the cafe's walls, the one where the framed flowers had hung the day before. "They're gone," he murmured. "Yes." "I took them down," she said, adjusting the tray against her hip. "I didn't want them to get stained or torn. They meant too much." "I'm glad you protected them," he said, eyes still fixed on the blank wall. "But I can't stop thinking about your mother's work." Rose hesitated. "Most people don't look twice at them." "That's their mistake," he said simply. When she walked away again, her coworkers immediately swarmed. "Rose, spill," whispered Mia, elbowing her. "That is the Ethan Hawley. Why is he here again?" Rose gave her a sharp look. "Please don't make it a big deal. He's just a customer." Mia smirked. "Customers don't look at waitresses like that." Rose's stomach flipped. She told herself Mia was exaggerating, but deep down she wasn't sure. Later, when Rose returned to his table to check on him, he closed his menu slowly. "You said those paintings were your mother's last works?" He said, "Yes," she breathed. "And there are only 3?" Rose nodded. "Is there any chance," he asked gently, "that I could see the other 2? Her breath caught. "You want to see them?" "If you're willing to show me," he said. "I'd understand if not." She hesitated. Letting strangers see her mother's artwork wasn't easy, especially someone wealthy, someone whose world was built on things her mother had never cared about. But his voice wasn't demanding, wasn't entitled. It was soft, curious, real. "My shift ends at 6, she said quietly. "If you don't mind waiting." "I'll wait," he said immediately. And he did. He stayed for hours, quietly reading on his tablet, occasionally looking out the window, never pressuring her, never hovering. Something about that patience touched her. For the first time, she wondered whether he had come to this cafe not because of business, but because something inside him was missing, something he didn't know how to fill. When 6 finally came, she untied her apron and tucked it into her locker. She found him waiting by the entrance, hands in his pockets. "I want to warn you," she said softly. "My apartment isn't fancy." "I'm not here for fancy," he said. "I'm here for the truth." Those words disarmed her completely. They walked together through the crisp autumn air of Asheville, passing craft shops and street musicians. People glanced at Ethan, some recognizing him, some simply noticing the contrast between his polished presence and her simple jeans and sweater. But he didn't seem to mind. He walked beside her like equals. Inside her small, warm apartment, she motioned toward the wall opposite the window, where 2 more paintings hung, a vibrant garden at dusk and a little boy feeding birds in a park. Ethan stepped closer and inhaled sharply. "These are even more beautiful than the one in the cafe." Rose felt her throat tighten. She painted the boy when she was sick. She wanted him to have hope. Said the world needed more gentle moments. She was right. Ethan touched the frame delicately. "These don't just show beauty. They show love, real love. The kind that can't be bought." Rose's heart trembled. He didn't know it, but he had spoken the exact sentence her mother used to repeat before she passed. Real love can't be bought. It's shared, taught, and remembered. When she blinked back tears, Ethan noticed. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I didn't mean to." "No," she said quickly. "You're fine. It's just, you're the first person who's ever understood." He turned toward her then, and something shifted. The air between them felt like a fragile bridge forming, one made not of wealth or status, but of grief, art, and the quiet need to feel seen. "Rose," he said gently, "I want to buy all 3. Her breath stopped. I can't sell them." He nodded. "I figured you might say that. But why would you want them?" She whispered. "Because they remind me what I lost," he said, voice barely audible. "Before all the companies, before the money, I used to paint too. But somewhere along the way, I forgot the things that mattered." Rose stared at him, stunned. Then Ethan exhaled shakily. "Your mother created something priceless, not because it would ever hang in a gallery, but because it came from love. People like me, we spend years chasing things we can measure. Money, numbers, deals. But what your mother left behind, that's what I wish I had given the world." Rose felt tears slide down her cheeks. He stepped closer. "I don't want to take them from you. I want to honor them. And her, if you ever decide to share her story or her art, I want to help." She looked up at him, trying to understand this man whose world was gold towers and limousines, yet who stood in her humble apartment like he had finally found something worth holding on to. "Maybe," she whispered, "some things aren't meant to be sold." He held her gaze gently. "Then maybe I'm meant to learn that." They stood in the quiet room, surrounded by her mother's colors, her brush strokes, her memories. Ethan didn't offer money, didn't make another pitch, didn't talk about deals or value. He simply said, with a softness she would remember forever, "Thank you for showing me what truly matters." Rose smiled through her tears. Thank you for seeing her. The evening stretched on, filled with stories of her mother's laughter, Ethan's childhood sketches, and the unexpected truth that the wealthiest man in the room wasn't the one with billions, but the woman whose mother had left her a legacy of love. When he finally left, he paused at the doorway. "Rose," he said quietly, "if you ever want help sharing her art, even with just one more person, I'll be here." She nodded, heart full dot, and as he walked down the hallway, she whispered the words her mother always used to say, "Some things aren't meant to be bought, only shared." Ethan heard her and smiled.